Okay, hello everybody. In today's video, I am going to be doing another watercolor, but this time a little bit different from what I usually do with some landscape. This time I've been playing the new Pokemon game, Pokemon Legends ZA. The time that this video was being painted, this piece of artwork, the new Legends ZA game had only come out a day ago, and I was feeling super inspired, and I wanted to do an watercolor artwork, a scenery with the starter Pokemon I chose. So for this I chose Totodile as my starter Pokemon for Legends ZA, and I thought that'd be fun to do an artwork on. I was feeling super inspired while playing the game, and I thought, what was I going to do a bit of artwork on this week? And I thought, why not try and mash the two together, do a sort of like a landscape painting with including some Pokemon in there as well. So I thought it'd be fun to do, give it a try, see if I can incorporate it, see if I can mesh the style a little bit, at least make it look like this Totodile can belong in sort of how I do a watercolor scene, to try and branch out of my landscapes a little bit by adding in some two little creatures here. But I want to, of course, level up my skills. So doing something like this is just going to help me broaden my horizons, hopefully, with that. So I started out with a quick little sketch, just a nice simple sketch showing where my things that I want to place around that aren't the background are going to be. So for this I did two little Totodiles, one of a full body Totodile, and I wanted one just in the water lurking around, and then one full body one to practice using watercolors on proper animals and portraits, trying to really get in there without making it very landscape painting, so I can really help define my skills a little bit more in doing extra like detailed work, seeing if I could do it without having too much like blending going on and stuff like that. So I wanted to have a full body of a Totodile on there. So that, as well as I also wanted to incorporate the scene, so I made it that these two were swimming around in a little swampy area, and I just got one Totodile sitting on the rock being all happy, and the other one lurking around in the water. So as you can see, I started out with my water going in just a simple blue-green and giving it passes in one direction, basically going from left to right, one swipe each side, really making sure that I can get like the sense of direction and ality in the water. So that was can't speak at the moment. Then once I had that as my base down, I wanted to start on the foreground sort of element, so I'm going to start off with that rock. And this is honestly working my way up to doing the actual Pokemon itself was going to be the thing I was most nervous about, and so I wanted to save that to last, make sure I really had the entirety of the background in there. And I thought, why not I add a little bit more and just put in one other smaller rock in the background as well, just give a little bit more into the scene itself, make it that little bit more detailed. So I just added another quick one in there as well. And the colors that I use for painting in these rocks here, I just mixed a little bit of burnt umber, burnt sienna, just really little amounts, with a grey there as my main color for the rocks. And I'm just of course doing this as my first pass, and then I'm coming in with the darker grey itself, maybe even with just a tiny pinch of black in there, essentially using a little food cooking term there, but just a little extra bit of black in there so I can start defining the shadows. Because once I have that down, and especially that I'm learning with watercolor, it's always best to work from light to dark and really define all the details and extra bits of shadows after putting in those highlights areas. One thing I'm still trying to get my head around and how to do that, making that look as natural and as nice as possible. So not sure, we'll see how it comes out in the end, but I was pretty happy with how it was starting to look like actual rocks were there, a rock formation rather than one big greyish brown blob. So once I was happy with the rocks, what I wanted to do is I wanted to add the swampiness of this water to come in. So I've got the bluish green water, but I wanted to have some like little reeds sort of popping out of the water to really helpfully sell off the effect that, you know, they're in murky sort of swamp-like area, or at least any area with a lot of water and vegetation in it anyway. And maybe I'm not quite pulling off swamp, but so all I did was in some of the areas where the swipes I put across it had a little bit of extra pigment and paint on them and leave an extra mark, I decided to make that the point where all of these little reeds had popped out of the water to make it look like that's where the water is sitting, and just giving a little bit of a shadow there. There's also that I also added in a couple, just in some other random places that I thought could use a little bit of extra filling in the scene to really hopefully sell that there's a lot of swamp growth in here with these little reeds just popping out of all over the place. So these Totodiles have a fun little place to swim around in, just like real crocodiles, really making it so that they can blend in nice and easily to the environment. Even though Totodile is a bright blue crocodile alligator, you know, and I'm painting in these green reeds, but hey, it's meshing the real world with Pokemon. So now came the big scary part of my painting, and the part that I was feeling the most nervous about, especially filming it. You know, filming artwork is always a little more scarier than just doing it by yourself, because I'm really wanting to not muck this up, especially in terms of making these Pokemon look like actual Pokemon and trying to get the colors as close as I can to the official artwork there, as I want to try and copy the official artwork. I don't think I'm good enough in my art journey at the moment to make Pokemon look good in a different style other than trying to copy the official artwork, because they're super iconic and I'm not quite sure how to interpret that in other ways at the moment. I probably could, but it would just maybe not read quite as well, and I wanted to see it myself if I can do them justice here as well. So coming in with a blue that was as close as I could get. I just had a little swatch off to the side that I could match it up with the official artwork, trying to get it as close as I could anyway. And the thing that I was really scared and worried about with this is actually, if you're painting sort of anything like this where you want a bit of detail and you don't want anything to bleed out, is getting the right consistency of paint on your brush. And one thing I found out pretty quickly while doing this is also the wetness of your brush makes a big difference as well in terms of getting that paint nice and smoothly off there. So I had to have my tip of the brush nice and sort of just moist enough, or just really damp, nearly on the verge of like pouring wet, and then just a bit of paint placed on it, and that sort of came out as the perfect consistency to get it gliding off the brush without it pooling everywhere, because I'm still pretty new to watercolors, especially in terms of doing like full like character work. Doing it for landscapes, not so bad. You can let it bleed and mix in with how you want it to with backgrounds and landscapes and that sort of thing. But when you're doing like actual character work like this can be something that you don't want. Like, I really didn't want any of this blue accidentally bleeding into any other part of my artwork, because it would be very obvious that the character and the background are merged together, and it would take a bit more skill than I would have to clean it up and make it look nice and incorporated in, because with watercolor, if you mess up like that, it bleeds together. You're not going to be able to sort of erase it like you can by doing it digitally. So having to be a bit careful here, also helping me out in my art journey here as well, because I'm making sure that I am really focused on what I am doing so I don't accidentally mess up, because I've got no undo button. So trying to get it right the first time is something that I'm enjoying, but it's definitely like stressing me out and putting me on the edge of my seat. So when I have that done, one of the other things I had to do on here as well is putting in very, very bright colors against very unnatural colors in terms of putting them in the environment of this painting, because I'm used a lot of like blue, greens, and a little bit of grey and black. So coming in with a super bright red like it was here, I had to really make sure that it wasn't going to spill anywhere. So it's a really fun thing that I learnt, is the consistency of my paint and brush really matters. And I think just having, I just had a little bit of paper off to the side, just giving it a quick test to make sure that it was at the right consistency where I wanted to, was really helpful in that situation. You can't see it, it's just off the camera, but it really did help me for just those first initial tests. Then I got a little bit braver, as you can see me going around, in terms of learning of what the consistency was, so I could immediately come in and do it without needing to use that practice bit of paper. Probably I should have continuously used it, and it would have gotten more like better results and more ease of mind and not having it. But I just felt like I was bold enough and I was understanding it, so I was just going in there after a few attempts of getting the consistency right and then just going straight for it. So maybe one thing I need to slow down a little bit on. But I must say I am pretty happy with how the colors are coming out, and I think they, even though they're Pokemon aren't natural creatures, I think they feel like they belong in this little scene here. I didn't go too crazy with any environmental details, so it wasn't too hyper realistic like I could have done here. I just kept it pretty plain and simple, and I think that's what I want for this here, so they could really incorporate in there nicely. And I think having in that little extra Totodile who's just swimming in the water really helps add a little bit of something else to have a look around the piece as you're sort of just visually taking in the whole thing, and just adding in that little bit of pop of color on the other side of the piece. But I think with that, while I'm painting in very carefully the Totodile's teeth here, we are done with this piece. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut to some nice like glamour shots, or I should say nice shots where it's sitting there nicely and I've taken all the tape off around the edges, so you can see what this piece is like when it's all cleaned up and completely done. And there you have it. There is my final and finished piece of my watercolor of the two Totodiles in the swampy lake. So I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I can't wait to see you guys all in the next video.